If you run a small business in Singapore and you are counting on a government grant to help fund the project, one of the first questions you will ask is a simple one. How long is this actually going to take? It is a fair question because the answer shapes everything from when you can start the work to when the money finally lands in your account. In the next few minutes, we will walk through the whole journey of a typical grant application, from the moment you start preparing it, to submitting it on GoBusiness, to evaluation and approval, and finally to claims and the actual disbursement of funds. We will also look at why many grants pay you back only after you have spent the money, what tends to cause delays, and how to plan your cash flow so you are never caught short. One important note before we begin: this channel is educational only. We are not a government agency, we are not affiliated with or endorsed by Enterprise Singapore or GoBusiness, and nothing here is official advice or a guarantee of any timeline. Processing times vary by scheme, by how complex your project is, and from year to year, so treat every range in this video as a rough guide and always confirm the current processing times on the official source, gobusiness.gov.sg or enterprisesg.gov.sg, before you plan around them. The stages at a glance: let us lay out the whole path in one picture because it helps to see where you are at any moment. A typical grant journey has a handful of stages. First, you prepare the application, which means scoping your project, gathering quotes, and pulling your documents together. Second, you submit it, usually through the GoBusiness portal. Third, the application is evaluated by the agency that runs the scheme. Fourth, if it is successful, you receive a letter of offer, which is the formal approval. Fifth, you accept that offer and start the project, keeping careful records as you go. Sixth, once the work is done or reaches an agreed milestone, you submit a claim. And seventh, after that claim is processed, the money is disbursed to you. Each of those stages takes time, and the total can stretch across several months. The key thing to understand right now is that approval and payment are not the same moment. There is often a long gap between the two, and that gap is exactly what catches unprepared owners off guard. Preparing your applications: let us start at the very beginning because this is the stage where you have the most control. Preparing a grant application well can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to well over a month, depending on how ready your business is and how complex the project is. In this stage, you define the project clearly, work out the costs, and collect supporting documents such as quotations from vendors, your financial statements, and any proposal that explains what you want to do and why. The reason this stage matters so much is that the quality of your preparation directly shapes how smoothly everything after it goes. A clear, well-scoped application with clean documents tends to move through evaluation faster, because the officers assessing it do not have to keep coming back to you with questions. A rushed or vague application, by contrast, invites exactly that back and forth, and every round of questions adds days or even weeks. So while it is tempting to hurry through preparation just to get your submission in, the time you invest here often saves you far more time later. Submitting on GoBusiness. Once your application is ready, you submit it. And for most business grants in Singapore, that happens through the GoBusiness portal. GoBusiness is the government's one-stop platform where you log in with your business credentials, fill in the application form for the scheme you want, upload your supporting documents, and send it off. The submission itself is usually quick once your materials are in order, but there are a few things that can slow it down. If your business is not properly set up on the portal, or your digital access is not sorted out, that can cost you time before you even begin. If required documents are missing or in the wrong format, the system or the officer may bounce the application back. The moment your submission is accepted though, the clock on evaluation effectively starts. That is why it pays to treat the submission not as the finish line, but as a checkpoint. Getting it in cleanly, with everything attached and correct, is what lets the next stage begin without avoidable friction. Evaluation and approval. Now comes the stage that is largely out of your hands, the evaluation. After you submit, the agency that administers the scheme reviews your application to check that your business is eligible, that the project fits what the grant is meant to support, and that the costs are reasonable. How long this takes varies a great deal. For some straightforward schemes, businesses report hearing back within a few weeks. For larger or more complex grants, evaluation can take a couple of months or more, especially if the project is ambitious or the funding amount is significant. During this period, the agency may come back to you with queries, asking you to clarify your project scope, justify certain costs, or supply an extra document. How quickly you respond to those queries directly affects how quickly your application moves, so watch your email and reply promptly. If the application is successful, you receive a letter of offer. This is the formal approval, and it sets out the terms, the amount of support, and the conditions you must meet. Reaching this point can feel like the end of the journey, but in reality it is closer to the halfway mark, because approval is permission to proceed and to claim, not the arrival of cash. Why the money comes later? This is the part that surprises the most owners, so let us be very clear about it. Many Singapore business grants are reimbursement based. That means you are expected to start the project, pay your vendors, and incur the costs yourself first, and only afterwards do you claim the money back from the grant. The letter of offer approves you for support, but the actual disbursement happens after the work is done and a claim has been submitted and processed. So the sequence is often something like this. You get approved, you accept the offer, you run the project and pay for it out of your own funds. You submit a claim with proof of what you spent. The agency reviews that claim, and then, some weeks or months later, the money is disbursed. The gap between approval and money in the bank can easily be several months and sometimes longer for projects that run over a long period or pay out in stages tied to milestones. This is simply how reimbursement works, but it has a very real consequence. You need enough cash to fund the project upfront, before a single dollar of grant money reaches you. What causes delays? If a grant is taking longer than you hoped, the cause is often one of a handful of familiar culprits, and many of them are within your power to avoid. The first and most common is incomplete or inconsistent documents. If a quotation is missing, a figure does not match across your paperwork, or a required form is not filled in properly, the evaluation stalls while the officer waits for the fix. The second is an unclear project scope. If the assessor cannot tell exactly what you are doing, why it qualifies, or how the costs relate to the work, they have to ask, and every question adds a cycle of back and forth. The third is slow responses from your side. Queries often sit waiting for a reply, and an application simply cannot move while it is waiting on you. And the fourth is applying for a scheme that is not the right fit for your project, which can lead to rejection or lengthy reworking. Every one of these is within your control, and clean, clear, responsive applications genuinely do move faster. A work timeline. Let us make this concrete with a made-up illustration, because ranges can feel abstract until you see them laid out. Imagine a small retail business applying for a grant to fund a digital project. They spend about 3 weeks preparing, scoping the work, and gathering quotes. They submit on GoBusiness, and evaluation takes roughly 6 weeks, including one round of queries that they answer within a day or two. They receive their letter of offer, accept it, and begin the project, which runs over about 2 months. Once it is complete, they submit their claim with all the invoices and proof of payment. The claim is processed and the disbursement arrives around 2 months after that. Add it all up, and from the first day of preparation to money in the bank, the better part of half a year has passed. None of the individual stages was unreasonable, yet the total is far longer than the owner first imagined, which is why setting expectations early matters so much. The numbers here are purely illustrative and not a promise. Your scheme, your project, and the agency's current workload could make your journey shorter or considerably longer. Planning your cash flow. So how do you protect your business from that long gap between spending and reimbursement? The answer is to plan your cash flow around it from the very start. First, assume you will need to fund the whole project yourself before any grant money arrives, and make sure you actually have or can access that cash. Second, do not commit to spending you cannot cover on the strength of an approval alone, because approval is not payment, and conditions still have to be met before you can claim. Third, build a realistic timeline that starts from preparation and runs all the way to disbursement, not just to approval, so your expectations match reality. Fourth, keep meticulous records of every cost as you go, because a clean, well-documented claim is processed faster than a messy one, and a faster claim means faster payment. And fifth, talk to your bank or set aside a buffer if a project would stretch you, so a delayed disbursement never puts you in a tight spot. Grants are genuinely helpful, but they reward the businesses that plan for the timing, not just the ones that qualify. Quick recap. Let us pull it together. A grant application in Singapore moves through several stages, from preparing and submitting on GoBusiness, to evaluation, to a letter of offer, and then to starting the project, claiming, and finally disbursement. Approval and payment are not the same moment, And because many grants are reimbursement based, the money often arrives months after you are approved and after you have spent it yourself. Delays usually come from incomplete documents, unclear scope, slow replies to queries, or applying for the wrong scheme, and most of those are within your control. Ballpark timelines can run from a few weeks to well over half a year, but they vary enormously by scheme and are never guaranteed. The smartest thing you can do is prepare well, respond quickly, keep clean records, and plan your cash flow for the gap between spending and getting paid back. A closing reminder, remember the spirit of this channel. Our job is to hand you the map so the grant journey stops feeling like a black box, and you walk into the official pages already knowing what to expect and what to prepare for. But the official sources always have the final word. Nothing here is a promise about how long your application will take, because processing times genuinely depend on the scheme, the complexity of your project, and the agency's current workload, and they do change. When you are ready, scope your project clearly, get your documents in order, and check the current processing times and requirements on gobusiness.gov.sg or enterprisesg.gov.sg before you plan around them. If this made grant timelines clearer, subscribe for more plain English Singapore grant explainers, and we will keep turning these schemes into plain English one at a time so you can plan with confidence instead of guesswork.